Lots of news from Tesla. We'll get to the production and the delivery numbers in just a bit, but a headline late in the day, Chief Engineer Doug Field, who's been with the company for 5 years, remember, he was essentially taken off of the main production of the Model 3 back in May. Well, he is leaving the company, so that's the headline late in the day. Not a huge surprise there. Now let's talk about the delivery news that came out early this morning, and the Q2 deliveries. These numbers, especially when you look at the Model 3, that's the disappointment that the street sees here. 18,440 of the 40,000 were Model 3. Most on the street were expecting at least 26,000 deliveries when it comes to the Model 3. So that news took a little bit of the luster off of the news that came out yesterday when the company said, look, we had a great second quarter, and in terms of the Model 3, we hit our goal of producing 5,000 per week. 6,000 per week by the end of August is the new guidance from the company. Then you have a couple of analysts coming out today and saying, I don't think this is sustainable. Ephraim Levy with CFRA wrote, we do not see this production rate as operationally or financially sustainable. RBC Capital, Richard Spack said, in our view, the efforts taken, that includes the tent and the overtime, represent a burst rate, not a yet sustainable pace. And that's why, as you take a look at shares of Tesla, yes, the company reaffirmed its guidance in terms of expecting to be profitable in the third quarter, cash flow positive. The stocks just moved a little bit lower throughout the day as analysts weighed in on the possibility that they may not be able to sustain the production rate for the Model 3 that they've laid out for the third quarter. Melissa?
How big a deal is Doug Field leaving, Phil? I mean, he was on leave since, what, May or so? So he's been out of the picture for a couple months at the time when the company has been ramping up production.
I think that if you look at the history Tesla in terms of executives, important executives, once they've sort of been phased out or they have decided that, look, I don't want to be a part of what's going on here at Tesla, it's time to move on and try something else. Tesla has been able to weather those departures. So while Doug Field has been a huge story over the last 5 years, he has been essentially pulling himself back and has pulled himself back or has been phased out, so to speak, since May. And as a result, you know, Tesla is now a company moving in a different direction.
All right. Phil, thanks. Phil LeBeau in Chicago for us. Well, one Tesla analyst said that they predicted a massive production improvement right here on CNBC. Take a listen.
We think that Tesla is going to produce somewhere between 4,300 and 4,900 Model 3s in the final week of the quarter. Now, Elon Musk has been out saying it's going to be 5,000, so this is a little bit of a miss, but I don't think that that changes the story here, which is a massive improvement, basically a doubling of Model 3 production quarter on quarter.
So we're now joined by that Tesla bull and a part-time astrologer, Gene Munster of Loup Ventures. Gene, before we gaze into the constellations for your future Tesla predictions, what'd you make of the price action today? Because, I mean, pre-market, we're up 5+%.
I think it shows how embedded the bear and the bull case is. The bear case, the stock goes up, as you said, 6%. The reason why, based on my math and my conversations with the buy side today, the stock traded off was if you take that 28,000, that was the Model 3 production number, 28,000, divide it by 12, you get to 2,400 per week. That's a similar run rate that they exited the March quarter at. And so it's the bears have their case to say that even though that 5,000 number was pretty, they had to throw everything at it to get there, and the reality is they haven't ramped. So I was surprised, to answer your question, at the action throughout the day. But after talking to investors, I can understand why the action was what it was.
All right, let's go stargazing, Gene, and take a look at some of your future Tesla predictions. First up, you predict production of Model 3s to hit 6,000 by September.
That sounds nice.
Why is that?
So this is a little bit later than what Elon Musk is saying. He's saying they're going to get there in 1 month at the end of, or 2 months at the end of August. So we're thinking at the end of September. So the reason why we think that is that it's safe to say he's had 21 misses. This 5,000 production number was the first time in about 9 months that he's gotten one right. And I think it's safe to always dial back what he's saying. So that's why we think it's going to meet that production number by the end of the September quarter. I want to put a quick finer point on why that's so important is if they hit that number, that's going to equate to about 48,000 Model 3s produced in the September quarter. And that should get them just to about profitability, slightly profitable. And I think that that is going to be an important part of the story, I think, is obviously getting that profitability. So it's not going to be wildly profitable in September. I just want to warn everyone. But I think if they get to that 6,000, 48,000 for the quarter, that moves them in the right direction to profitability and, most importantly, sustainability.
All right, next prediction, Gene, you're expecting a capital raise in the second half of 2019. 2019, so that's next year. How big?
So this could be a huge capital raise, and obviously the company's out saying that they're not going to raise money, so we're going in a little bit different direction in what they're saying. The purpose of this is, so how big could this be? It could be $1 billion plus, maybe even $2 billion kind of a capital raise. There's two purposes for it. One is they need to refi the current debt that they have. They're paying way too much of an interest rate. If they get to profitability, that will make lenders more confident about the sustainability of the story and should allow them to refi at a lower rate. And separately is they still have this option open around doing some manufacturing in China, and they'll need to raise capital to advance that. So we think that they will, in fact, raise a lot of capital in the back half of 2019.
All right, last prediction. Tesla is the best bet in large cap technology. Really?
So we still love Apple. I just want to be very clear, but that is a different animal. That is something that is slowly going to move higher. But if you look at just pure upside potential, and the big difference here is if the reason why Tesla presents so much upside relative to some of the other larger cap tech is it's so controversial. There's this embedded buyer of all the people that are short. And so there needs to be a psychological shift, I think, with the street that, in fact, this is a sustainable company. And we think that they will ultimately get there, and that is the pathway to showing the most upside to larger cap tech over the next few years.
What kind of upside are you talking about, Gene?
We don't have price targets at Loup Ventures. We let investors kind of figure that out, but we can say orders of magnitude, and I hate to be vague about that, but I think that this has the most upside to all large cap tech.
All right, Gene, thanks for the stargazing. We appreciate it. Gene
Thank
Munster
you, Melissa.
of Loup Ventures. How did the chart look today on this reversal?
Well, I mean, look, this is a highly cyclical name. The bigger picture is this. We know that this stock came out of the gate in 2010, and no one quite knew real, not real. And then in March of 2013, at 25 bucks, it went up tenfold to March of 14, and essentially has been sitting there ever since, meaning the market took it from 5 billion to about 50, and here we are at 56. So it's working off that move. The market priced in all of these things that have come out. Now the question is it just going to stay stuck, or is there some up leg like that, like multiples, what Gene had referred to? My hunch is it's stuck, and as a trading chip, sure, you can make money, lose money, but I think there are better things to do.
Well, it's a great stock to trade. I mean, listen, this stock in May was at 280, and it kind of ran into this number, and so they sold the news, which is pretty clear. I think it's a shame when you talk to people who've driven this car, this Model 3, they really like it, and they're not too upset about paying $50,000 for a car that was originally going to be $35,000 for all intents and purposes. I think it's really important to remember the game that Elon Musk is playing with investors is probably not a great one, especially when you have a car that people really like and there's a lot of demand for it. Don't forget, a few years ago when they announced this, they got a zero interest $400 million loan from people
deposits,
laying it
yeah.
out. So, like,
But is a $50,000 car a mass market car? Because that's what this is.
But maybe the goalposts have shifted a little bit. What I'm saying is the messaging stinks. Okay, like just keep it in a hot.
Well, put it this way: I got longer at 280. I'm still long the name. Today, when I looked at it, I said, should I trim at that 355 mark? I was unhappy with the price action today. I don't like that precipitous drop. I would have thought once they met those production goals, targets, I would have thought the stock would have been $400 bid. So it's making me skeptical about being anything longer than just a trade at this point.
I mean, you can take today's news, as Phil pointed out, any way you want. The bull's something in there for bulls, something in there for bears. So on some level, I'm not surprised at all. This is such a big number. It's total classic sell the fact. The bottom line is the company's still, we don't know whether they're still going to have a cash burn effect in the second half of the year. If they jammed a bunch of cars out the door just to be now cash flow somewhat neutral to positive, but we don't know they can hold that, I think we're where we have been.
What did you guys make of Gene's last prediction, and that is that Tesla is the best bet
Listen,
big cap
when
tech.
you go into any one of their cars and you see this massive iPad like this and no dials and everything like that, and then you think about what they're talking about with autonomous in some time in the future.
You think no one else is doing that?
Well, I understand,
it's not a tech name in terms of gross margin.
I get it, but I'm just saying you can see
heavy.
the ecosystem that can be created. You can see a company like Google at some point when their growth starts to slow and say, you know what, that's our next frontier.
They used to be able.
I just don't
were
know.
Ford
And
of the past. They were Ford of the past, trading on a technology company valuation. I get you on the margins. The problem is now they're being gauged as a car company with productions. It feels like whack-a-mole to me, and I'm running out.
What's
running out of
ironic
malls.
is that Elon Musk in his letter said, "I think we're finally a real car company."
Yes, I don't
want to be a
them to
real
be.
car company.
Is that what they want to be? Is that what they want to be?
And watch out.
And the thing on Tesla is, for so long, they had such a head start in the EV world. I don't think they have a major head start at all. I think every day that they don't get to production numbers, and let's face it, once they get to them, I just think a lot of competitors are closing the gap. I think the assumption that there's nobody in this space, just because you can have an iPad on your dashboard.
It's a little silly to think in 2018 that it couldn't be a tech company, because Apple Computer at one point wanted to be a phone company. And now they own the market, they own the margins, they own everything about it. So let's give Elon Musk probably the benefit of the doubt that he's probably got a plan for this one.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.